Okay, our next is our family line shout out and head count. So I think we have one from Phoebe. All those from Williams line. Anybody here from Williams line? About Charles. I need a pen to write this down, I guess. One. Do it again. 2, 3, 4.
I don't know where the rest of your kids are.
I'm sure we have more than that. Ann. Anybody here from Ann? James. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Levi.
My brother and my niece are here too.
Henry. Letitia. And Mary Jane. Anybody here from Mary Jane? We have anybody here that this is their first time? Hard to clap. Thank you. Bonnie was going to do us a presentation on Margaret. I don't know if you guys won't be patient enough to let Bonnie come do it. Let's do it. We're going to put this online too so that you can do it later if you'd like.
Well, Margaret Thomas, born in 1814 in Wales, was the second of a child born to a large family. Her father was Thomas William, and her mother was Mary Ann James. And I just went on to Family Search and looked under memories and found many stories about this marvelous lady. And today I'm just going to tell you 2 stories about her, but just know there are so many more out there. I'm going to entirely skip their living in Wales, where after they joined the LDS Church, got extreme persecution. It took them 10 years to save the money to come to the United States. They lived in New York for a year during the Civil War. The oldest 4 children took after their father, who was a shoemaker, and worked making boots for the Civil War Union soldiers. And the youngest 4 went to school. And so we'll just skip the train ride where they went to Florence, Nebraska, after New York, where all their belongings were burned into the luggage car. We'll skip the trek across the West until they arrived in the Salt Lake Valley. Those are stories for another time. But today I'd like to tell you about a story from Henry John's descendant named Ethel Roderick. And this is what she said about Margaret Thomas John's wife. Margaret Thomas John was called an angel of mercy. She was always ready to leave her work and run to help with sickness. With the blessings of healings in her hands, She lovingly toiled among the people, sharing her joys, her tears, and her song. No one knows how many babies she delivered, but it was many. And she taught her daughters well. They could do all of the household tasks pertinent to girls at that time. They learned to take wool, clean it, dye it, spin it into yarn, and then knit it into clothing. Her youngest child, Mary Jane John, told this little story about her parents. They entertained Chief Pocatello from the Shoshone tribe and his several brothers many times. She remembers the first visit when these men came to her parents' home and of the terrifying experience. Chief Pocatello came to the door and demanded food, and Margaret told him, "Yes, I will feed you." And then she immediately began making biscuits and preparing a meal like those she fed her family. Her children were so afraid of this great Indian and his brothers because they had heard the news of some of their bad deeds. As Margaret saw the fear in her children's eyes, she said gently, "Don't be afraid, and above all, don't let them know your fear." On average of once a week, the Indians came, and each time they were treated as guests. At this house, they learned to sit down at the table, use a knife, fork, and spoon, and the Indians learned to call the children by name, and they were very kind to each of the children. They even learned to call their parents by the same names the children used, Papa John and Mama John. So this legacy of Papa John and Mama John kind of began at the first Thomas John and Margaret reunion in 1883 in Portage, Utah. It was held at their house, and it was a dinner and a program, and about 70 people attended. And Margaret was asked to give some remarks, and she basically just stood up and said that she was very thankful for all those present, for the great respect they showed to her. And then, in conclusion, a descendant of William John, her name was Marie Webster, said this at a Daughters of the Utah Pioneer meeting: "If it hadn't been for my ancestors such as the Johns, accepting the true gospel of Jesus Christ when they heard it in their native land and were willing to make the necessary sacrifices to come to Utah, what would my life have been like? Because of their sacrifices, I am able to enjoy all the comforts of life and the blessing of religious freedom." So I just want to say thanks today, along with you, to Papa John and Mama John.
Guess I should say that out loud. Thank you, Bonnie. Jean, you got the minutes from our last meeting?
So these are the minutes for last year's family reunion. Descendants of Thomas and Margaret John met at Portage, Utah on 16 and 17 June 2023 for the purpose of convening the 140th annual family reunion. Some family members gathered on Friday evening at the park, with many camping out that night. The evening was spent roasting hot dogs, marshmallows, and woofums. The Daniel John family cut curly fries from potatoes and deep fried them for all in attendance. The rest of the evening was spent socializing, game playing, and general frivolity. The highlight of the evening was the glow stick cannon provided by Daniel John. The kids spent about an hour chasing glow sticks that were fired high into the night sky. Friday morning, more family members arrived at the reunion site. Most of the family came from all over Utah and Idaho, but many had traveled further. There were many first-time attendees to the reunion. The most cited, that's a typo, but the most cited reason for the first-time attendees was the newly launched Thomas and Margaret John website. Kay Quinn, the organization historian, set up a large display of pictures and documents in the cultural hall at the church for review. Prior to the annual business meeting, Denton John, a lifetime citizen of Portage, and that is a typo. We need to put that actually happened the night before, but Denton came the night before and gave us a presentation about the John family immigration to Utah, their small community just north of Portage called Johnstown, and his efforts to restore the old homestead. The business meeting was conducted by President Kip Howell at 11 a.m. in the church cultural hall. Officer positions up for election were vice president and one finance committee member. This was Kip's second year as president, so the current vice president, Daniel John, will fill the president position for the next 2 years in accordance with the organizational constitution and bylaws. There were no nominations for vice president, so Gene Cottrell volunteered to serve as vice president if somebody else was willing to fill his current position as organization secretary. Marcy Cox, a first-time attendee at the reunion, volunteered to be secretary. Marcy was voted in unanimously as the new secretary, and Gene Cottrell as the new vice president. Kip Howell nominated Leo Howell to fill the open finance committee member position. Gene Cottrell seconded the nomination. There was no discussion of the nomination, and all present voted unanimously for Leo to fill the position. Kip discussed the need and role for family line representatives. Members present volunteered to serve as their family line representatives. The final officer list for the 2024 family reunion is Daniel John, president, Gene Cottrell, vice president, Marcy Cox, secretary, Louise Sessions, treasurer, Leo Howell, finance committee member, Anna Austin, finance committee member, Kay Quinn, historian, and James Daniel John, technology administrator. The family line representatives for the James line, Larry Peak and Kip Howell, Charles line, Christina Harrison and Cheryl Columbia, Levi line, Hiram L. Sessions, Henry line, Judith Wilson, Letitia line, Janine Holz and Vonna King. Kip encouraged family members to visit the Portage Cemetery to see the new site map and information board that Daniel John and his family had installed the day prior, which was donated to the town of Portage by the family organization. The business meeting adjourned at 11:45 a.m. While the meeting was held, the children gathered under adult supervision for crafts and games, including a large inflatable water slide that the organization rented for the day. After the meeting, everyone gathered for lunch at noon. The lunch consisted of a baked potato bar with all the fixings which the organization provided and many wonderful salads and desserts provided by family members in attendance. After lunch, the family gathered again in the church cultural hall for the presentation of awards and announcing the winners of the silent auction items. This was the final official event of the 2023 reunion, and the meeting adjourned around 2:30 p.m. with the announcement that the 2024 reunion would be held on June 14th and 15th, 2024 at the same location.
About financial committee.
How about down? Oh, please. This is the lady you pay your dues.
Yeah, you pay the dues to me. If you do the silent auction, you pay me. If you just want to pay me, pay me. Okay.
For the organization, of course.
Yeah, of course, I would get it all. Our beginning balance was $5,989.90. Our total income from last year was $965. Our expenses from last year is $1,966 for an ending balance of $5,054.24, making a loss of $935.66.
Does that include the structure? That includes the structure, correct?
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Any other officers that need to report?
If you want to report from me, I can give you one.
Yeah, you'd be good, I think.
James, please tell us more about Gary and how he came.
Okay, so I'll tell you more about Gary. So Gary, who just gave us that wonderful presentation, again, I apologize for the audio quality, we're working on it. We put up a cemetery sign at this reunion last year, and that was one of our major expenses. And he was traveling to the United States with a couple friends of his. And during that time, he was in several different states, and just 3 days after we had been here on Saturday, he came in on a Tuesday, I believe, and he saw the sign, and he saw that there was a website, and he saw there was an email, and he said, "This is my family." And we haven't been connected to the Phoebe line for many, many, many years. We lost contact, Thomas lost contact with Phoebe in the 1860s, maybe 1870s, but it was different back then because, of course, we're with letters, and it's a long, long ways away. And so Gary and I have been emailing back and forth over the last several months, well, year now, and he's very enthused about his family history. Of course, that's why he came to Portage, was to see his ancestors, and so that was who we were listening to earlier, and it's just wonderful to know that we have the Phoebe line. They're still up there. They're still doing their family history work, and it's been amazing. So if there's any questions about that, that's amazing. I don't know if he actually lives in Wales, but he's definitely in the UK. So that could be, London, it could be Scotland, it could be, depending on where he's at. He's very close because he can drive over there. In regards to my officer meeting or portion, the website has been being developed. We're trying to get more and more documents on there. There are currently 8 documents, I believe, that we've transcribed, including Bonnie's that she just delivered. It will be there on the site. We have a family poem. We have Denton's history from last year, and we have other, of course, records there. I also have added a new portion of the website called What's New. So you can click on What's New, and it'll list things that have changed, that have been updated, and that are new. So if you'd like to just go right to there, you can see what has been included, so you don't have to dig around too much. And of course, we're updating and building that. If there's any questions about that, of course, feel free to ask. So.
Thank you, James. I love what he's done to the website, and the information that's there, and some really cool things. Pictures from last reunions and things like that. Okay.
So, as you can see around the room, there's all these pictures. I am not Kay. Kay is the one that takes care of those. But I have watched her over the years accumulate all these things, and she has totes and totes that she travels back and forth from her home here to the reunion and spends hours putting things up. And she's dug into the history, found the pictures of the ship that they came on, the history of them, and put it together in pictures. All these pictures that you see here have been donated by family members to the organization, as well as she printed out all these books, except for the few that are not in the white binders. And she has done a marvelous job as a historian. When 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have any of these. And she has just really worked really hard. And if you have any histories or pictures that you would like to donate to the organization, we're always looking for more things, and we're always excited to see new members that we know have something to share with us.
Thank you. Stand up. And thank you. Okay. Gene, you want to do election?
You want me to lead the election?
Last time they made me do it, so you're,
So it's payback?
I think that's part of vice president.
So it's only one position, right? So we only have one position up for nomination this year, and that is the position of financial, what's it called? The committee member, yeah, the finance committee member. And these are 2-year rotations, so whoever we nominate today will be in that position for 2 years. So we'll open the floor for nominations. We're replacing Anna, so yeah.
Can you say what that entails?
So Anna says it doesn't include anything. They, yeah, so they are, so it's a countersign for the checks. So, yeah, it takes 2 people, and we have 2, so who's the other one? It's not Kip. Leo. Leo's the other one, and he was just nominated last year, so we'll open up that position for nominations. We just need 1 person to help fill that position. It's really low maintenance, yeah. The finance person does most, the treasurer does most of it, so. Anybody willing to serve in that position or willing to make somebody else serve in that position? Like what happened last year? Okay, the nomination on the floor is that we re-elect Anna Austin, and it's seconded by Marcy Cox. Did you have something else? Okay. Okay, any other nominations? Any final nominations? Okay, then since Anna is the only one, I think we can vote by acclamation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Anna. Anna was trying to secretly oppose. Okay, thank you, Anna.
I think the next is to do the door prizes.
You want to do that right now, or do you want to do that later?
Or do you want to do that later? Okay. Well, we're doing the rest of it. Let's do that later too, I guess. Everybody come back. Let's go have some lunch. I'm sorry. Am I missing something else?
No, I just couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
I'll remind everyone that the attention unit Ward 2.
All right. For those of you who may not know, Denton's going to do us a tour of the old farm place. So we're going to drive out there at 2 o'clock.
If anybody doesn't know where that's at, you just take that road that you came in on, that 4-way stop, you take a left, and you go all the way down. Isn't that just an L there, or does it keep going? And then you know better than anybody. I'm sorry.
How do we get to your house?
Oh, we can go right from the park here if you want. And, yeah, it's 8800 west down here that goes north and south. So we can leave here, it's 2 blocks east, and then straight north.
And
And
that tour will take place at 2, and the old homestead is there, and he owns it now, so he will kind of show everybody.
okay. Well, I have
1 more minute.
just a second. Could I just show you something?
This is kind of cool, so it's worth waiting another minute.
I've been missing this for quite a few years. I don't know, it just appeared. This is Thomas John's
You hear it?
golden watch that he brought it from England across the plains with him. And my dad's dad, my grandpa Henry, gave this to my dad as part of his inheritance. And my dad gave it to me when I was about 6 or 7 years old. It's right after World War II. And I was driving 4 horses. We didn't have fuel. It was all going for the war effort. And so we had reverted back to horses. So I was driving a team of 4 horses back and forth on a 40-acre field out north of town here. And he gave me this watch. He said, at exactly noon, you pull those horses off the field, take them over and unhook them, give them some water and feed them some hay, and leave them there till 2 o'clock, let them rest. And I said, well, how will I know when it's noon, when it's 12? And he handed me this watch, and he said, I knew you'd ask that, so I'm going to give this to you as a keepsake. And he said, this belonged to Thomas John, and it is gold. It still works. He used to put it on the pulpit when he was giving sermons, and that way he didn't run overtime. So anyway, asked my dad, well, how do you know it's gold? I said, we don't have anything gold. And he said, yes, we do. He said, this is gold. And I said, how do you tell? He said, you take your pocket knife and scratch, and if it leaves a mark, then from the pocket watch, it's gold. So I know this is gold because I took a pocket knife on the inside of the back cover and scratched, and it left a mark. So I know that this is one that came across the plains with them. They brought this, and he had this when they set the baggage car on fire, and he had this in his pocket, and he was playing the violin, so he had the violin too. And I have that also. I think you've all seen it probably before. But I've looked for this and looked for it and looked for it, because I had it a few years ago, and suddenly I didn't. So I wanted to assure you that we do have it. So anyway, I will see you. Let's meet up by the fire station at 2 o'clock. And I'll do my best to show you some things that are still in existence and some things that probably you haven't seen before. I'll show you where each one of the old children of Thomas and Margaret lived out north. So all I can do is show you just some empty ground in some of those places, but at least it'll give you an idea of where they were. And it's interesting to look at the little map, because everything north of the last street that goes to the west off of 8800 West was Johnstown from there. And they owned practically everything from there north past the Idaho border, from the river to the top of the mountain. And so he had a lot of boys, but Thomas also left land to each one of the daughters. And that's why some of it ends up with different names on the titles now, like Gibbs and Howell and Roderick and some other names. So anyway, you may find that interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should bless the food here.
Yeah, probably best. Also, please ask that if the kids and everybody can be done doing candy jars and everything else by 12:30. That way when we come back in here at 1, we can have it all tabulated and everything.
Probably the silent auction stuff too.
Yep. All that stuff.
brought her your stuff.
All right. Somebody want to say a blessing?